everyone. Welcome to the Voices of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Tina Clark. And today I have a special guest named Mary Sanders. She's a chiropractor and medical intuitive. With a wealth of experience as a self-employed medical intuitive and chiropractor, Dr. Mary is deeply committed to guiding individuals on their journey of personal transformation. She focuses on helping people cultivate thriving health, happiness, and purpose through the powerful tools of energy medicine, spiritual embodiment, and meditation. Dr. Mary hosts the internationally acclaimed podcast Energy Medicine, which discusses everything related to aligning the mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Mary earned her doctorate in chiropractic from Logan College of Chiropractic in St. Louis. She completed her certificate in positive psychology from the Whole Being Institute in Lenox, Mass., and studied under Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar. In addition, she completed her master's in intuition medicine from the Academy of Intuition Medicine in Sausalito, California, and studied under Dr. Francesca McCartney. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Tina. It's my honor to share time with you today. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so we off camera, we discussed what we would talk about today, and we're going to go in depth about the 7 main chakras, or maybe more, because we know there's additional chakras to that, right?
Yep. We got to start somewhere, though.
Right. So, and how that's tied and connected to the endocrine system.
You know, I am so honored to share this topic with you and the listeners because, number one, I find it juicy. Like, it's so juicy that it combined the elements of my training. It combined the physical neurology of the body. It combined the mind and also the spirit. So it allows me to show up in my wheelhouse, right? So as a chiropractor, I know the body incredibly well from the neck on down. And then I was inspired to learn more about what was happening in the space between the ears. Like, what happens when we're meditating? What's the neuroscience behind that? And then, last but not least, in understanding the energetic body allows me to better understand how we can use or utilize energy medicine to enhance our spiritual connections and also to evolve consciously. So the energy centers, also known as chakras, are just points of energy. Points of essentially the chakra system is most intricately known for and plays a vital role in receiving the information from our environment. Then we assimilate that information. Then we express our life force energy back out into the world. So if you think about those 3 basic concepts, those are the primary roles or the purpose behind having the energy centers. So that's how my passion for the chakra system started initially. And then I started to go deeper into the life experiences, into the neurology, into the endocrine system.
Great. So how do you use this information to help a patient or a client?
That's a really good question, Tina. So first and foremost, I want to share with you and the listener that it's always my honor to hold sacred space for another person in their energetic healing. That is something I take incredibly serious. It is an honor to witness somebody and to greet them spirit to spirit. So the first thing that I want to share with you and the listeners is that I put myself in an expanded energetic state. I meditate prior to connecting with the patient. I do a comprehensive medical evaluation and intake form that I have a better understanding as to what the patient is dealing with and what their primary health concerns are before we get on to the call. And so it allows me to get a read or a blueprint as to where this energy center where this energetic healing may be headed. So when I scan Well, the first thing that I do when I open up and lift the veil for a reading and a healing, and I greet a person and receive permission to read their auric field in their energy system, I always ask their spirit to guide the energy session so that it is in alignment with the highest good of the person who's receiving the healing. And so from there, the veil gets lifted. And then my job is to step away from the analytical brain and to lean into my intuition, my expanded state of consciousness, where I receive information above and beyond the traditional 5 energy centers, above and beyond the traditional 5 senses of receiving information: sight, smell, hearing, and taste. So then I lift this veil, and it's my job to sense and say what's coming up. So oftentimes, the first thing that shows up for people is the congestion or the lack of clarity within their auric field. Okay. Oftentimes, I'm looking for other people's energies within the auric field. And then the second thing that I glance at is how well that the spirit is embodied in his or her human home. How grounded and how connected are they with the earth frequency, and how much do they inhabit within their physical home? Are they present? And so then from there, I'm guided into most often looking at the first energy center, and that's the first chakra, known as the root chakra, located deep within the pelvic bowl. The reason that this comes up is because this energy center is the lowest of all the frequencies. It's the closest to the Earth's frequency, the Schumann's resonance, that 7.83 hertz that we know emanates from the ionosphere of the physical Earth. And it's the most sustainable energy that we have. It's resource for us as humans. And so I want to make sure that the first energy center, the root chakra, and when you look at the first energy center, the themes revolving around this energy center have to do with safety and security, basic survival mechanisms. The other thing that happens is that I get a sense of their ability to trust in the divine, trust in that they will always be loved, nurtured, and cared for. That also resides within the first energy center. And also how well they can find their placement in their environment and in their home. So like within their family dynamics, within their tribe, within their community, how aligned are they with their purpose, and what is their ability to physically manifest on this physical plane? So those are some of the themes that revolve around the first energy center. Now, life experiences happen, right? So oftentimes, as young people growing up in today's society, we experience adverse childhood experiences or traumas, whether they be small t traumas or big T traumas, it doesn't matter, that can compromise the energy center within the root chakra. Also, it can also compromise other energy centers, but I find that the primary basic instincts of survival, that when trauma resides, it impacts the first energy center. So then I start to make the connection with life themes and the corresponding themes of the chakras. And then I start to look at the connection of the physical body via the autonomic nervous system and the central nervous system, specifically the branch of the autonomic nervous system, and how it relates to the endocrine gland associated with that energy center. And for everybody listening, the basic concept of the endocrine glands is to produce hormones. So we have more hormones that are produced above and beyond just the traditional sex hormones that most of us are familiar with, but specifically the endocrine gland associated with the first energy center is the adrenal system. And I know, listeners, many of you are intimately connected with understanding what the adrenal system does for you. That's responsible. Those are the hormones that are responsible for fight or flight. That's what happens when you live in a revved up life or a sympathetic life. You sometimes overdraw on the adrenal system to where you deplete those hormones. And that can turn up in the energy centers. So there's a corresponding endocrine gland for every energy center, and there are corresponding body regions. So specifically for the first energy center, the butt, thighs, knees, ankles, and feet are most intimately connected into the root chakra. So that's a lot of information to digest for each and every single energy center that you hold within your physical body. But that's the starting point to open up the conversation for today, Tina.
Yeah, because we can talk for days and days on the chakra system. There's a lot of books out there on the chakras. But going back to when you're looking at their auric field, are you using clairvoyancy to see in there? What's that process like? What are you seeing and feeling when you're looking for congestion, other energies? How grounded they are, etc.
I use a multiple of my extrasensory perceptions. Okay. So I would say that my strength overall, now each time I do a reading or a healing, I receive information differently depending upon the person who I'm holding space for. Traditionally, though, I'm incredibly clairsentient. And so what that means is that I can physically feel what is happening in another person's physical body. Okay. Now, I know that may sound far-fetched and a little out there for some of the listeners, but that's how I physically feel the information. I also have a keen sense of psychometry. And essentially, that is the ability to perceive or receive information within my hand. Now, I don't necessarily, I don't have the skill of picking up a pen in a antique store and telling the history of the person that owned that pen. That's not how my strength shows up. My strength in psychometry, it shows up in receiving information in my hand. It's like I get various different sensations. Like I mentioned, you said, okay, well, how do you know when a person has other people's energies within their auric field? What shows up for me is like a pins and needles kind of sensation in the outer layers of my fingers, depending upon what auric layer is being penetrated by other people's energies. So that's the physical sensation that I get. Now, that's via my psychometry. And then, as you also mentioned, I do receive abstract knowing, direct knowing through the space of my seventh chakra, and helps to develop my clairvoyance so that I can see clearly what is happening within the patient's body. So essentially, I'm utilizing my strengths from the second energy center through clairsentience, clairvoyance through the sixth, direct knowing through the seventh, and through my hands. So that's how I personally receive information. And I know, Tina, with your years of practicing Reiki and having your hands on other people, I know you receive information. Maybe there's some similarities and maybe there's differences. In fact, Tina, I would venture to say, well, you might say that you have a strength in clairvoyance as well, and that your seeing skill is completely different than how I see. And that's the beauty of working. That's the artistic component that comes out when there's a healing element where you're utilizing intuition and skills that people have developed over time.
Yeah, it's so interesting to talk to another energy healer because everybody has a different approach to, doing this kind of work. So I love hearing about other methods and approaches. So we want to inspire the audience. So can you share maybe some stories of any of yourself or any of your clients, friends, family that you've worked with that were able to overcome a health issue with energy medicine?
Yeah, I'll use myself as an example because that's the safest thing to do as far as confidentiality is concerned. And I will share that probably, I'm going to say about 17, maybe 20 years ago, I went through a very severe form of burnout that compromised my adrenal system to where I went through, I went flatlined as far as my adrenal hormones were concerned. And for example, I'm somebody who has always exercised on a daily basis just so that I can, number one, get a good read as to what's happening with myself physically, and so that I can utilize it for stress management and things of that nature. But at that time, when I went through my adrenal exhaustion, I literally could not walk a mile. I had no energy. I had enough energy to go to my integrative physician in order to get IV injection for Myers cocktails and glutathione to help repair my gut. And then I would be able to go to work, and I would sleep over my lunch hour. I'd finish my afternoon session and I'd come home. And that was my routine for the better part of 8 months. So needless to say, when I wasn't able to experience my own vitality, I knew my system was compromised. At that time, when I was experiencing burnout, I didn't have the tools and the resources that I have now. I was active in yoga, and I loved the meditation and the final shavasana in yoga, but I didn't have a separate meditation practice to enhance my well-being. So when I started to learn more about energy medicine, I can remember being on a panel, and I can remember people saying, well, do you think that you're grounded? They were asking me this, like, are you grounded? And I'm like, yes, I'm grounded. I'm grounded because I'm an athlete. I know where my body is in free space. And in reality, I can remember the people on the panel completely chuckling. And they were chuckling because my first energy center that I just discussed, located deep within my pelvis, was unhealthy and underdeveloped. And then what was happening on the opposite end of the spectrum, my seventh chakra, located on my crown, was excessively open, and my spirit or my energy body was hovering over my physical body. I was anything but grounded. So once I learned the tools of how to connect with the earth energy and what it felt to be completely saturated and embodied within my own physical home, it was only then did my adrenal system begin to repair itself. Now, I want to be honest with you and with the listeners, that wasn't the only thing I was doing. I was doing nutraceuticals. I was doing everything that I could, bovine substances, in order to help support the adrenal system. I was doing active visualization, other forms and modalities of healing. But the point being, for the sake of the listeners, when you hear me talk about I was completely exhausted from an adrenal state with time, and the belief and the conviction that if I grounded more into the earth surface, in connecting with the earth's energy, that I would be able to build myself back up and begin to plump up my adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys. So once that happened, my entire endocrine system rebalanced itself. And so what do I mean? Because of the 7 endocrine systems that are associated with the 7 chakras, everything from the pineal, the pituitary, the thyroid, the thymus, the pancreas, the ovaries, and the adrenal system, if one of those 7, like for me, it was my adrenal system, if it is negatively influenced, it's going to compromise the other 7 endocrine systems, because the hormones are so finely tuned and in harmony within the body. If there's disharmony in one endocrine system, it's going to create disharmony in other endocrine systems. So once my adrenals fluffed back up and I was able to produce the adrenaline, the epinephrine, the norepinephrine, the cortisol, the DHEA, then all of my other hormones, my reproductive hormones, my sleep hormone, my digestive hormones, everything else came back online.
So, who did you see? Who did you see that gave you the message that you weren't grounded, or it was actually your root chakra?
Yeah, there's two different experiences in my life, and they both happen to be in energy school. So I went to a branch of Barbara Brennan School in Woodland Park, Colorado, for several years, and then I attended the Academy of Intuition Medicine in Sausalito, California. And in both of those situations, I was participating in panel discussions. So, as we are learning to develop our psychometry, our intuition, then that's the information that we're receiving in these panels. So I had groups of people that were reading the same consistent message. And then I have various different energetic healers and various different modalities that I did in order to replenish myself and to support myself in the healing journey.
What were some of the grounding practices that really helped you?
Yoga, number 1, meditation, number 2, breath work, number 3.
Wow, she was ready for that answer.
Yeah, no, it's my life.
Yeah.
It's my life. And so I step on my mat, and there isn't a day, and I'm not exaggerating, Tina, that when I step on the mat, I express gratitude. And my intention is to allow the breath, the pranayama, to guide me through the asana portion of my yoga practice so that I can release any energetic blocks that I may be holding so that I can be more in alignment to be of service to others. So without a doubt, I know how to replenish my system now. I didn't 20 years ago.
And what kind of yoga do you practice?
Variety. I do a vinyasa primarily and some hot yoga as well.
Okay. And I'm curious, you mentioned that you were getting feedback that your spirit was kind of hovering above your body or not totally in your body. Is that something common with people who have adrenal exhaustion?
I don't know if it's necessarily associated with adrenal exhaustion, but what I find is that, and these people are incredibly motivated to experience more divine essence in their lives. Like they want to experience more bliss and more joy. And so oftentimes these individuals, myself included, I was trying to spiritually bypass my physical body. And so I would energetically hover. So, Tina, this is the best way I can describe it. So, you know how when you're looking at a cartoon and you see the speech bubble come up and out of the person's head, like that's what they're trying to say. That's what I was doing. I was coming up and out of my head, and it kind of holds weight. And it's like I can see these people a mile away now when I'm walking down the street. I'm like, okay, gotta come home, gotta come back into the physical body. The spiritual bypass is not working. So the unhealthy expression of the 7th chakra related to the 7th layer of the biofield is prominent with those people who have that dysfunction that I just outlined for you.
Yeah, and there's usually some symptoms where you could tell when someone is not grounded in their body. For example, they may experience dizziness or vertigo, or they feel frazzled. And those are all signs of someone who's not grounded. And some of us who are more psychic and spiritual tend to do that. We tend to want to exit the body, like, not today, I'm going to, go in the upper dimensions. But
yes,
I find it's really important in any spiritual practice or energy healing practice to ground yourself first before you begin anything. The more grounded you are, the more psychic you will be.
That sounds counterintuitive. And I know there are some listeners who are out there saying, what did Tina just say? And I'm here to second that, meaning that the way that I make the analogy, if you are looking to ascend into higher levels of consciousness, coming out into the realm beyond the seventh layer of the auric field and above the seventh chakra, that same expansion has to be present below the physical body, so that your connection with the earth, the grounding cords, need to be wider and deeper in order to hold that kind of a frequency. If not, if not, when you're holding space for somebody, you are depleting your own energy, okay? Opening yourself up to violations within any other spirits, and then you become exhausted as a direct result of the work. So as somebody, again, I went through adrenal exhaustion and burnout. That's a hard lesson to live through. And so I am adamant about not going through that process again. So my intention is never to have merging with another beautiful energetic spirit, and to be more than adequately grounded for myself and others.
Yeah, and what I've done in my own practice with Reiki is I actually help ground my client before I even begin. So I ground myself, I ground them, and then I start the Reiki and the energy healing. And then I do it again at the end.
Yes, and I think that helps to promote the entrainment. And not just entrainment, is just essentially creating a frequency in which both people can harmonize or tune into for the session. So yes, I totally second that. I follow the same protocol. So that's bringing everybody out of that sympathetic dominance within their autonomic nervous system, and to get them reconnected to the parasympathetic, so that they can rest, they can digest, and they can heal. And that, my friend, as you well know, is the greatest recipe for transformation, sustainable and lasting transformation.
Right. So the practitioner entrains the receiver, and we all go into nice alpha brain waves, which has been shown in scientific studies. And alpha brain waves is simply just a relaxed meditative state. And when you're relaxed, you have less pain. When you are less stressed, you have less pain in all areas, mental, physical, emotional.
Mm-hmm. Although I will say, Tina, the more that you talk about pain, the more people are like, I don't want to experience pain. It's so counterintuitive to lean into pain. And when people are in pain, they get more sympathetic driven, like you're talking about. They get more revved up because they're so uncomfortable in their physical body. And
Right.
so, again, the importance of coming back into the parasympathetics for healing and transformation is critical.
Yeah, well, you're feeling the pain, so let's do something about it.
So true. And the pain is a source of information.
Right, exactly. So I always tell everyone my approach is usually somebody has some kind of pain somewhere in the body. If they don't, I'm so happy for them. Or something that they're struggling with. And when you know the chakras really well, you can start digging and asking questions, and you can figure out what's causing that pain, because you need to go back to the root of that pain, whether it's an event or a thought or an emotion or all of it together. And then you can figure out exactly what's going on in the body. So the body is full of useful information about you, and then energy healers like us actually know what it represents.
I always ask, and I'm going to chuckle when I say this, when I get a new chiropractic patient in my small little boutique office here in Boulder, I always ask, well, what is your body trying to tell you? And most people will say, I don't know. And I'm like, well, if you did know, just pretend if you did know, what would your body be telling you? And then they're like, oh, well, my guess is that it would be XYZ. And that is the point of entry to unraveling what is going on within the physical body.
I love that. So you do it all. You do the physical side and then you do the energetic side. So you're covering all the holistic bases, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the evolution of medicine. I can no longer just treat somebody from a chiropractic musculoskeletal standpoint. I don't get the pleasure I can't separate it anymore. It's all one system. And
Exactly.
that's the future of medicine as far as I am concerned. From a linear spectrum, our healthcare system has gone into and is trying to make its way back. I will say that, we do have some functional practitioners and integrative practitioners out there, but very few practitioners have the time or the skill set to tap into the energetic body. And that's the missing piece as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely, because we're multidimensional beings and we're complex beings, and every human on the planet is like this. There is no exception to that.
So true.
So we have to look at everything as holistic practitioners. We have to look at your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and soul levels.
And the chemicals.
Yes.
And the hormones.
And the environment. Well,
you have to look at all of it.
That's under the physical. Well, thank you, Dr. Mary, so much for being on the show. I love that you talked about this, and I hope the listeners out there understand more about what we're talking about when we're talking about the holistic approach to healing. Can you share with the listeners where they can contact you and get more information about you?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate sharing this information. So, listeners, if you have resonated with anything that we have been talking about today and your curiosity has been piqued, I invite you to do two things. Number one, I invite you to go to my website, which is www.drmarysanders.com. That's drmarysanders.com, and schedule a complimentary discovery call. Because you're going to know you have the right as a consumer to pick and choose your healthcare providers, and you should feel good about the relationship that you have with them. So you will know based upon this short time together whether or not I could be a good match for you or not. And so that way it satisfies your curiosity. You will have had an opportunity to have one-on-one connection. That's my first invitation. My second invitation, once you get to the website, is to download the Ultimate Meditation Guide for Unleashing Your Authentic Self. The reason I am suggesting that you download this is because it is comprised of 3 different meditations. The first one I talked about is grounding. The second one is creating neutral separation so that you can cleanse your biofield of other people's energies. And the third meditation is specifically about aligning a timing clock, an energy center located behind the forehead to allow you to be more present, to be more available in present time. So those are the first 3 things that I typically address with all the clients that I see. So it's also my gift to you, to the listeners, to help support you on your healing journey.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been my honor, Tina, and blessings to you and all those that you are being of service to. May you continue to do great work.
Thank you.